Here we are, back again for another fragrance review. This one's called For Men Intense by Bentley. Now, this is probably the first ever Bentley fragrance I've had. Obviously, most people know Bentley for car manufacture, which high-end cars, similar to Rolls-Royce, something like that. So yeah, this is an interesting one because again, going on the price, at least you would assume that after what I just said, it would be very expensive, but no, for 100 ml, it varies online from 20 to 30 pounds. That's a pretty good price. For when we get the review, you'll see why for this kind of price there's a limitation to what you can get from it, but it's still surprisingly good for the price. And it's a bit of a blind buy in the sense that I've smelt it on someone else. I didn't personally try it on my own skin, which is usually a no-go. Like normally I'd want to experience it myself, but this was that nice when I smelt it on someone else. Obviously that made me want to purchase it. So without further ado, go through the notes. So it's frankincense, black pepper on the frankincense, black pepper, leather, labdanum, clary sage, cedar, patchouli and sandalwood. So again, I've been over this before in other videos of mine, that it's kind of it's all well and good having that ingredient profile breakdown on a website or whatever, but and even some of the time it'll be on the boxes as well, but rarely. But I just think it should be, I don't know, I don't want to like say in terms of the marketing thing, like selling the product a bit better in terms of, you know, mentioning what the compounds are, maybe even where they're sourced from as well. Again, even higher end premium brands don't always do this, so it's nothing to do with price dictating what's in the product and so on. In terms of that, in terms of the marketing aspect, obviously higher end fragrances will have more raw materials of higher quality sourced from different places. But having even said that, and I've noticed from reviews online more recently that even some of the higher end, shall we say, raw materials in certain fragrances don't necessarily say where they're sourced from. So to some it matters, some it doesn't, but I just thought I'd mention that anyway. So the write-up for this: the initial notes of Bentley For Men Intense include frankincense, geranium and spicy pepper. So again, as I'm reading this is actually information from 2 different websites. So you're going to get, depending on the website you go on, you're going to get different write-ups for different perfumes and fragrances. So again, for some people that doesn't matter, but for if you're a gift buy and sale, just if you want to learn and gain a kind of basic understanding and knowledge of these ingredients, it's kind of interesting that depending on where you go, you could get, you know, one website saying it's black pepper and then another saying spicy pepper, which again, for people who know, they'd be able to maybe associate that. Where I think there was even another website where it said pink pepper. So you know, they can't all be right because there's obviously discrepancies. But anyway, without further ado, you get what I'm trying to say there. As the top notes fade, the warm leather, aromatic clary sage and precious labdanum become more prominent. The base notes consist of warm cedar, captivating sandalwood and oriental patchouli. Right, so now we'll do the actual review. Put the notebook away. So again, always on the skin. Yeah, you can do it on these little cards, but again, I find that they give very mixed results in terms of the initial projection. That, you know, that's a selling point for some people who are maybe not in the know of what they're doing in terms of purchasing a fragrance. What it smells like on the card will smell completely different to you or someone else, but on the skin, what you smell and what radiates off the skin is what other people will smell as well. Obviously men and women can smell things differently, but without going right into that, you get what I'm trying to say. Again, you should review it more on your own skin, the initial smell, the dry down and so on. But this is a good one for the price. As I mentioned, it was kind of surprising really. Anyway, so it's quite strong as well. I won't go in there straight away because again, some fragrances you can get away with that, or they stay as a skin scent and they never really evolve. But this is an EDP as well, Generally speaking, an EDT tends to be initially a big burst of fragrance. Usually, say like with the citruses, you get that kind of big projection for say an hour or so, or if that at all, and then it fades and it kind of goes away within several hours. Where EDP tends to stay, in my opinion, from with the ones I've experienced at least, you either get ones that last all day that stay very close to the skin, or you get one that's just like a monster that just radiates off you, and other people will compliment and smell it as well as yourself. So yeah, so it starts off, I don't want to say like sweet, almost like a perfume at first. Like it's got that kind of, it feels like classy. That's the best way to describe it. Kind of like dressy uppy, classy. But yeah, it does. I know from obviously having used this before, it does actually change more when it's on the skin. So initially, you do get that sort of sweetness and that kind of going out, dress up classiness. But then as it actually dries down, different layers of different ingredients come out of it. And which is what they're supposed to do anyway. Not all the formulas do this as well as I've described with this one. So again, considering the price and the name at least, I would have, for how this smells and how long it lasts, it tends to be kind of a surprise for me, because again, having spent anywhere from like £10 on a EDT up to over £100 for an EDP, and again, if you go online, or if you know, there are a lot higher end ones, £300, £400, but you kind of don't expect one of 30 or 20 or £30 even to be as projecting and as nice as this one. So it's a nice surprise, because again, you don't always get what you pay for, but if you know what, generally speaking, with fragrances, you expect, if you spend a bit more money, to get a higher end product, more raw materials, less synthetics, less chemicals, shall we say, cheaper knockoff formulations, tend to last longer, project, and so on. So the dry down's actually better than the initial smell. The initial smell is still pleasant, but I wouldn't say it makes itself stand out amongst a crowd of other fragrances. But in terms of, you know, for the value for money, I think it's really good. In terms of like, let's go back over the notes, because I've made notes here for a reason. So the dry down I actually prefer more than the initial smell. The initial smell, it kind of, it's nothing special, but it's still nice. So if I was going the initial smell, it's like a 6 out of 10. But the dry down actually gets better. So in terms of projection, it is strange for me. Depending on if I'm in whatever environment, like usually if I'm warm, certain fragrances really project. Where this, like I'm fairly warm now, I've got the heating on, and so on. I've just had a shower as well. So it's weird. It's almost like it's settling on the skin, and then it like reactivates depending on what I'm doing. Like say, if in a cold environment or sitting down, other people will mention that they can smell it and it's really strong, where for myself it doesn't. And I have this with a lot of fragrances, funnily enough. The ones that people can really smell on me, or that really project, I don't necessarily always can smell, or doesn't smell as monstrous. But then there's other ones that I smell that I really smell, where other people less so. So I don't know what's going on there. But overall, I would probably give it an 8 out of 10, purely because it's nothing special. I'm not going to pretend that it's, you have to buy it, but I think for the price of 20 to 30 pound 100ml EDP, in terms of longevity, let's say, again, it'll vary. Again, it's something that you need to try yourself, but for me, I'd say it's anywhere from like 6 to 8 hours, which is pretty on its money for an EDP. But then there's other times when I've worn it where it's just so radiant, and I can smell it as well, and I know everyone around me can smell it. But then like today, it could be something to do with how your skin absorbs the fragrance, or depending on how hot or cold you are, if you've had a shower and so on. So they're all things to consider. In terms of wearability, I think that it's more of like an officey going out than say like a gym or even a club. It's still nice. Don't get me wrong, you could wear it different environments, but in terms of how I would see it, I would say more of an office kind of nice fragrance, or going out, sort of like a date environment, maybe a meal. I wouldn't say it's like beast mode projection or really powerful in that sense, but yeah, overall I'd give it like an 8 out of 10. Really good value for money. That kind of saves it in the sense, like if it was like £100, £80, the rating would probably go down at least a mark or two. But I think for the value for money and what it does really well. So there we go. Not really anything more I can say with that one.